Well, we're joined from London by music industry commentator Martin Talbot, who's chief executive of the official charts company in the UK. Now, a lot of fans have clearly been personally affected by this. You've got some people saying they'll remember where they were when they heard that David Bowie had died. How significant a moment is this, would you say?
David Bowie was, an absolute colossus of the music industry and the entertainment industry, broadly as well, because he wasn't just a musician, but yeah, he was a colossus. I mean, you're talking about, from a music perspective, the kind of significance of Elvis Presley, the Beatles. There aren't many others, actually, you could even put in the same bracket. So this is a massive, massive moment.
What about his latest album, Blackstar? It had just been released. He must have known he was ill as he made it. How do you view it now, and just how good is it?
I think it's a remarkable thing, actually. I mean, his longtime producer, Tony Visconti, has said already that his life was a work of art, and actually his death was a work of art as well. Now listening to the album, which is a very dark album, which talks about going up to heaven, looking down on the world, and even in the video to the first single, Lazarus, there's an image of him kind of rising up from a bed as if he has passed away. Now there are all kinds of messages being seen from within that, and clearly he knew what was going to happen. He knew that even if he was going to be around for a short while after the album release to promote it, or to be around to see it being successful, I think he knew that it wasn't going to be long afterwards, and it was certainly going to be his last contribution, as an artist, as an iconic kind of music artist.
Much has been said about David Bowie's career, about how he constantly reinvented himself, that he was always ahead of his time. How true is that?
Within a decade, in the 70s alone, David Bowie, produced half a dozen. Depending how you view all of his music, he produced certainly half a dozen, maybe 10 absolutely seminal, incredibly important records. But each time kind of reinventing himself and appearing as a different character, whether it was the original David Bowie, who was previously a kind of avant-garde actor, through to Ziggy Stardust and Aladdin Sane and the Thin White Duke, and he came out of this era of that's now well documented, of a huge amount of drug abuse in the second half of the 70s, and then came out with Scary Monsters, a different character again, and then Let's Dance in the early 80s as a kind of soul boy. I mean, even within that period, he packed so much in to that particular period. It's remarkable.
And just briefly, his impact clearly was felt way beyond the world of music, because the tributes have been coming in from politicians like the British Prime Minister, the Vatican. The German government said he'd helped bring the Berlin Wall down.
Well, of course, he played a massive part in the history of Berlin. 3 of his most acclaimed records, Heroes, Low and Lodger, were all recorded in Berlin in a studio right by the Berlin Wall. At a time when it's easy to forget, a time when there was not a lot of culture that was coming out of Berlin, that it certainly wasn't appearing on the world stage in the way that it did after the release of those records. So he had a very, very intimate relationship with Berlin.
Martin Talbot from the UK's official charts company, thanks very much for joining us on Euronews.
You're welcome.